Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from Black midwives, doulas, and other traditional childbirth supporters who have dedicated their lives to being of service to Black mothers and families in all aspects of the motherhood journey. This evening, I have the pleasure of speaking with Khye Tyson. Khye Tyson is an unapologetic Southern queer Black femme who enjoys writing, reading people, subverting the gender binary, and designing underwear for non-binary folks. Khye is a sacred transition guide, entrepreneur, healer, writer, consultant, and educator. As the founder of Kuluntu Reproductive Justice Center, founded in 2018, Khye is working toward a world in which Black women and femmes can live, thrive, and raise healthy families freely with a healthy community. Khye loves to hike, sew, thrift, create art, sing, and dream of a world in which education is intuitive and culturally responsive. They are originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and currently reside in Atlanta. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Kai, for joining us this evening. I always say that intros don't necessarily do us justice. So if there's anything that you would like to add around what it is that you're doing, I know collectively, we wear many hats. So just, definitely feel free to fill us in.
Yeah, so my name is Khye Tyson. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am an educator. I am a healer. I am a sacred transition guide. I am Southern. I am from Tennessee and North Carolina. I am the grandchild of Miss Laudell Blue and Ms. Marilyn Tyson, and the great grandchild of Doy Blue, of Velma Fossey, of Catherine Tyson, of Bernice Day. I come from a long line of educators, and women who take care of children in whatever way, shape, and form that looks like. My mama is one of 7. My grandmama is one of 8. And then my other grandma, she was a teacher. Her mother, my great grandmother, she was a foster parent to like 28 kids.
Wow.
Or some high number like that. And she was amazing. And I am a spiritual being. I'm very in tune with my ancestors, and with I'm learning a lot about hoodoo, and I'm learning a lot about herbalism and how all these different things are interconnected. And so I just feel really grateful to be able to learn and then turn around and be able to provide some of the things that I'm learning to other people.
Oh, that is phenomenal. And, it makes my heart happy to be able to recite the names of those who came before us, because for our people and what we've experienced, that's no easy feat.
Absolutely.
So that is amazing. You spoke about your mom and her being one of 7, and generationally, having large numbers of, children. How did that impact you growing up? Like, what was your messaging around childbirth and pregnancy and all of those things prior to you coming into this understanding of the work you do now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm thinking back to, I think my family, so my mama's side is the side that I was usually around on a day-to-day basis. And they are very Christian, my grandmama was Methodist, very much go to church on Sunday, and then we go home and have Sunday dinner after service, like very traditional in that way, with a little sprinkle of hoodoo.
Okay.
Just a little sprinkle. And of course nobody talked about it, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I see you, grandmama. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, them black eyed peas and them collard greens on New Year's, and we got to clean the house, and we got to, okay, girl. And so, growing up, I think I had a really, I don't know, my relationship to birth was, I have a younger sister that's 5 years younger than me. So I was old enough to know what was going on when she was, you know, my mom was pregnant. And I always tell the story, we were eating out at my favorite seafood restaurant when my mama's water broke. And I was so hurt that I could not, our food hadn't came yet. I was so hurt. I was like, so I can't get my shrimp. We got to go right now. Dang. But like, so that's like one of my first birth experiences. I was like, I was almost 5. It was a couple weeks before my 5th birthday. But yeah, so I, you know, it's very much been a part of my family. I have older cousins and you know, aunties and different folks in my family who have had kids over the years, obviously. But one of my older cousins, I think I was about 9 or 10, and she gave birth to her first living child. She actually had a pregnancy loss. She had a stillbirth a couple years before that. And you know, my mom is very, let me think. So my that cousin, her mom is my mom's sister, but they were like 10 years apart. So my mom and my cousin were more like they were auntie and niece, but it was more like big sister, little sister. And so my mom was very close to her throughout this process. And so I was my mama's shadow. So I was there with her through the pregnancy loss, through the stillbirth experience. You know, I remember they took pictures of him and we had like a family plot in the cemetery, and they had a plot for him made, and, you know, all of that. And so, you know, I was there for that experience, but then she had a baby maybe a year or two later. And that was when the little sprinkles of hoodoo started coming out. Like my grandmama she hard-boiled the egg and put it in a sock and nailed it over the door. And I was like, well, what's that for? Oh, that's to keep the spirits out. Okay, let me file that back. You know, maybe I'll need that one day. You know, she was very much like, my cousin moved in with her after she had her baby. She was breastfeeding. And she was in the back room with the baby, and grandmama was, you know, cooking for her and all that kind of stuff. And so I got to see all of that when I was 9 and 10 years old. And it's like, I just started learning these kind of family rituals around birth and around death. You know, what are the certain things that we do? Like we cover the mirrors if someone's dying in the house. And I was like, oh, why are we covering the mirrors? Oh, because the mirrors are the portals. And I'm like, wait a minute. Choir leader, grandmama, wait a minute. Where did this come from? So, you know, it was all like, I don't know. I think back on a lot of those experiences, and I'm like, okay, I see some of these early seeds being planted for sure.
Absolutely. And it's in the blood. Like, you know, it definitely comes back strong once you have an awareness of it. So how did that kind of lead you to where you are, or how you began this work? What were the steps, or, you know, the inspiration around you saying, okay, this is where I want to be, this is what I'm going to be doing? Or did it even happen that way?
Yeah, it was a very roundabout kind of journey. So my mama was always go to college. So, you know, I got the good grades. I went to college, and then I had no idea what I wanted to be. I changed my major like 4 times. But I ended up getting a degree in communications with a minor in nonprofit management. So I wanted to work in nonprofits. You know, I want to do something good to give back to people. That's always been like an undercurrent in my life of like, I always knew I wanted to do something like meaningful, something useful, something, you know, that helped people. And I didn't even talk about my granddaddy, but he was a city council person for like 40 years. He was like a civil rights trailblazer in the small town. Cause like our family is from Dixon, Tennessee. It's a little small town outside of Nashville, but that's where my mama's side of my family has been for generations. And so, yeah, my granddaddy was a city council person for like 40 years or something like that. And he had some civil rights awards, and like he was always like literally on my 18th birthday, he registered me to vote for me and was like, happy birthday, here's your registration card. I was like, oh, okay, we here. But like he was very political and always very politically involved, like locally. And then with his job, he was he was the union leader. So he worked at the Ford factory in Nashville, and they had the union, and he was always putting people on, and these are good, dignified jobs for Black people with health insurance, and you could get vacation days, and all the things. And so he was always doing that kind of organizing on that side. And so yeah, I had always grown up seeing that, like helping him stuff envelopes for campaigns and that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I went to college, and I did the nonprofit thing, and I interned at some nonprofits, and I worked at a couple, and I was like, nah, this ain't it. I just it was a lot more red tape than actually doing anything worthwhile. And like all these barriers put in place so that it's harder for people to receive the help that you're providing. Or they have to tell their entire traumatic story to be able to get, $50 for their water bill. Come on now. So yeah, I was like, okay, nonprofits ain't it. Let me try again. So then I go to grad school for education. And I didn't want to be a teacher. I never really wanted to be a teacher because I was like, that seems like a lot of work. You got to grade the papers at home. I'm like, nah. I need a job where sometimes if I'm not feeling it, I can like phone it in. And you can't do that as a teacher. You got to be on 24/7. But I went to school for education, but higher education administration. So like the people that work in like orientation and diversity programs and student activities and those kind of things. So I worked in I got my master's degree. I worked in universities, and I was very much like one of the millennial kids who bought the thing of like, go to college, get a good job, you'll be fine, you'll have enough money to pay off your loans, everything will be great. And I graduated college in 2011, couldn't find a job for a long time. And that just all of those things were really affecting me. And I was just very much like, I was like, this whole, all of it, something about it ain't right. And like, just thinking and figuring out like what is happening, because it's not just me, right? It was me and so many of my friends. How many of my friends kept going back to school because they couldn't find a job to get more and more debt? Now you got 5 degrees and you working at Target. Oh gosh! Like what?
Yeah,
like that's a common story. Underemployment and all these different things. And like we did what you told us to do, and of course, as Black folks, as soon as too many of us did the thing, they moved the needle again. They moved the, oh, well, a bachelor's degree is not worth nothing. Oh, well,
right.
Really? Like, so, I was very much caught up in all that. But anyway, so I got my master's and more debt, and was working in education for maybe 5 years or so. And in 2018, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Because it was a lot of the same things I was seeing in the nonprofit world of red tape and very insidious white supremacy, frankly. And all these things that are in the way that keep me from making the difference that I want to make, and like making the impact that I want to make with Black people specifically. Like I shouldn't have to tiptoe around saying that. First off,
thank you.
I shouldn't have to tiptoe around saying I'm here for Black people.
Yes.
And I'm tired of that. And that was a big thing in education. Well, and like, there's nothing, like, I'm not anti-inclusion. I'm always talking about intersectionality. I'm always talking about like how these things affect other groups. But the fact is that if we focus on the most marginalized, then it will ripple out for everyone else.
Exactly.
And that includes Black women, Black trans folks, Black non-binary folks, Black folks with disabilities, Black folks with, illness, Black folks who are poor, Black folks who are dark-skinned, Black folks who are fat, Black folks who we don't like to talk about, Black folks in the ghetto, Black folks that people claim to be ashamed of. All of those Black people, those are the people that we need to be centering. And like, yes, of course, I care about other groups of people, but as we care for Black women and so many other groups of Black people who aren't cared for, everybody else will feel those effects.
Exactly. The positive impact on focusing
Exactly.
in on that. So, wow, that is definitely a mouthful, but it speaks, so clearly to what it is that we're talking about right now, and
Yeah.
just the understanding of how significant this work is and how you can't sugarcoat it and it's
No.
not about not including everyone. It's about really honing in on where the disparity is.
Exactly.
Know specifically that we're talking about Black birthing people and their experience,
Exactly.
so much so outside of other groups being impacted, but significantly here, then we
Exactly.
can really bring about change. Because what I've noticed is we have conversations, and particularly in the experiences that I've had, having conversations with medical professionals or soon to
Hmm.
be, medical students, nursing students, soon to be, and you're in a room and I'm sharing my personal experience of what it
Hmm.
is I've witnessed, and people are sharing their personal experiences of some of the trauma and the tragedy that they've experienced. And
Hmm.
then you have these young people of color who are also in the space, Black men and women, that are like deer in headlights with these statistics and what's
Hmm.
going on, because we don't have solutions. So having these conversations, talking about what is working for us, being very specific about that, I think it adds significant value. And you spoke about your grandfather, and I see how that whole that bloodline of activism, and
Hmm.
really being able to give voice to those who don't get a platform.
Right.
So how do you combine the birth work, the activism, your purpose? What
Yeah.
does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I'll kind of I'll s- I'll kind of wrap up my timeline story while I say this, but yeah, it all. So what I was realizing was like I was in college and I was like, okay, Black students are struggling, so let me go to school, learn how to help Black students in college who are struggling. Oh, okay, I'm listening to their stories. They've been struggling since childhood. Oh,
Right.
okay, well, let me see, let me go to summer camps and get these childcare positions and all these different things. And oh, these kids are already at 6, 7, 8 years old and all these different ages. Like, basically all my experiences I was going through in education and in nonprofits, I was realizing like, okay, maybe you have to go back further. Maybe you have to go back, maybe it's babies, maybe it's toddlers, maybe it's, but then I was like, well, no, because the whole family unit, it's not, we can't pretend like these, if Keisha had to drop out because her mom was sick and she had to take care of her mom, or because she had to take care of a sibling, or she had to work full time or whatever. Like, that's not
The root of it.
that's not the root of it, and it's not an isolated.
Right.
And like something about white, I'll get to that in a segment. Anyways, so I was in education. I was like, I can't do this anymore in 2018, but I had been trying to I moved to Atlanta in 2015. And I was looking for a political home, kind of like it reminds me of like when you're going to churches and they're like, if you're looking for a church home. So I was looking for my political home, and I was, going to these different organizations, and I came across reproductive justice.
Mm.
And I think it was Feminist Women's Health Center down here in Atlanta. But reproductive justice is a field created by Black women in the mid 90s that is really meant to encompass the wholeness of who we are as people. Reproductive justice is the right to have children, to not have children, to parent the children we do have in healthy and safe ways, and to have bodily autonomy. And that third one, parenting children, the children we do have in healthy and safe ways, like that includes police brutality.
Oh my
That includes education. That
God.
includes the school to prison pipeline. That includes environmental justice. That includes, like, if you don't have clean water, or if you're in a food swamp, or if you don't have transportation to get to the grocery store, or if you don't have an ability to work, or if are on disability, but then that's a whole, nightmare that, all of that, or if you have to deal with child support or whatever, like, all of those things are reproductive justice. And it felt so much like home for me.
Yes.
And I found that maybe in like 2016-ish or 2017, and I just started going to more events and volunteering and learning more. And so in 2018, I'm having panic attacks at work and all these different things, but I also became, I applied for a fellowship through Feminist Women's Health Center. And I got that fellowship, and I was like, I really don't know. Like, I was burnt out from education, completely burnt out. And I was like, but I don't really know what else I like to do. I kind of like putting on events. So, we'll see what happens. And so I was just kind of going along with that and learning more about reproductive justice and how all these different things are truly intertwined. And I started to put it together. Like, there's something about white supremacy or white culture or whiteness that like desires to see things as individual entities.
Compartmentalizing, like everything is down to the most minute, but we see things as everything being connected. Everything is interconnected. So yeah, I truly understand. And historically, you can see how that has impacted everything up until where we are now.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I kind of made, it wasn't impulsive. I kind of decided to a while ago, but basically I was looking for a promotion at my job and they didn't want to give me one. And I was like, fine, I quit. So I quit my job in 2018. I also, I was doing this fellowship, and then I kind of on the spur of the moment, but not really, signed up for a doula training. And so I ended up training to be a doula in 2018 as well. And I trained to be a childbirth educator. So I was, trying to put my doula business together and figure out all of that and how to run a business. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I was also putting on events on the side. I was also educating on the side. I was working with some really cool organizations doing like life and sex education for like 4th and 5th graders.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a really fun experience. And I was also, so these were Black 4th and 5th graders. And at the same time, I ended up teaching middle school English, even though I said I never wanted to be a teacher. But I was teaching these white kids, and they were 6th through 8th grade. And I noticed how much more grown up these little Black girls had to be at 9, 10, 11 years old. And these white kids were allowed to be children so much longer. And I was like, this ain't right. This ain't right. And all these different experiences were just fueling me. And I'm like, none of this is right.
Right.
We shouldn't be working to live. We shouldn't be working so much that we don't have time to live. We shouldn't, like, capitalism has stolen our parents from us. Like, capitalism has stolen our childhoods from us.
Mm-hmm.
It has stolen our ability to be happy, to have a baby.
Yeah.
It's like all these different things. And so, yeah, I basically I was trying to do like 3 or 4 different businesses. Like, I was trying to do way too much. But in 2019, I took all the things I was doing and I consolidated them. And that's where Kuluntu Reproductive Justice Center came about. So I know it was a very long story, but all those different experiences, have allowed us to put on events. Before COVID, we were putting on events for communities, for folks to meet birth workers and for us to have these types of conversations. Events for folks to build communities with other families that are similar to them. Events for birth workers to learn how to run a business, because I was realizing that I wasn't the only one that didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so then, of course, with COVID, we pivoted to mostly online. And so I serve as a doula and childbirth educator. I serve, or I specialize in serving LGBTQ families, Black families, and other families with intersections that maybe we don't talk about a lot. Mm-hmm. Whether it's someone who's pregnant and HIV positive, someone who's pregnant and recovering from substance abuse, or families who are pregnant and going through a divorce, or pregnant and like not this perfect happy family that is projected. And so yeah, through Kuluntu, I've been able to reach so many different folks to really help them figure out how to create a sustainable business, because it's reproductive justice for birth workers to be able to feed themselves and their families.
Absolutely.
Because we are doing ancestral and sacred work, and there's no reason why we should be struggling.
Mm-mm.
There's and there's nothing wrong with taking money in exchange for your energy and your expertise and your knowledge. Because how else are we going to take care of ourselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's one of my big platforms. And then the other piece is working with, like I said, LGBTQ families, but then also helping birth workers become a little bit more literate to working with LGBTQ families. Like, I don't expect anyone to know everything. I don't know everything, but there are some things we can do to be more inclusive overall. And for us as birth workers to rethink our relationships to gender, and to sexuality, and to these norms that have been pushed on us by capitalism that are not indigenous to many of us at all. The nuclear family, just the whole family structure, single family households, again, compartmentalizing, like we said. We don't do that. We live in villages.
Absolutely.
We live in villages, intergenerational villages, intergenerational education, intergenerational everything. And so, you know, the nuclear family and all those things, like, it seeps into our birth work, even if we don't realize it. And these assumptions, they can be harmful for people. And so, yeah, talking to birth workers to help folks expand their horizons, not only around like how to run a successful business, but how to run a business with integrity. Because we can't talk about birth justice and reproductive justice until we talk about integrity, because that's the root of justice. If you cheating people, don't talk to me about justice, because justice is not just the big stuff. It's the little stuff too. Everything is interconnected, as we said. So how I treat you, how I treat, my client, how I treat someone who can't do anything for me, how I treat someone who says no to me, how I hire people. How much are you paying your people? I know money is not always easy to come by. I know, but like, I hold myself to the standard of paying people at least $25 an hour, even if that means I can only pay you for 5 hours a week.
Right.
I'm paying you $25 an hour, because I'm not about to play you in $10 an hour. Like, and I get it, life can be rough, but nah.
Yeah.
Like, I can't fight for 15 and then turn around and cheat somebody else.
Right.
Especially another Black person.
Right.
No free internships, pay your interns. Like, all this stuff.
Wow. And that definitely impacts quality of life and just as a community, how we exist together. So, time flies, I swear. It seems like we just got started, but I definitely want to make sure that people are clear about what it is that your organization offers, the services that you all provide, and how to get in touch with you. And then, so that I don't forget, also some action items, because I feel like, activism, we think of it as something separate. Like, we're advocates and activists in our daily lives. So how is it that we can contribute to reproductive justice in particular? What are some of the action items that regular everyday people can do to add value to where it is where we want to go?
Absolutely. So follow me on Instagram, Kuluntu RJC. Kuluntu is KULUNTU. So Kuluntu RJC on Instagram is where I'm most active. I'm also on Facebook, Kuluntu Reproductive Justice Center. And our website is kuluntu.center. It is a work in progress. Pray for me. This website has been, anyways. So we not only provide direct birth work services to Black and LGBTQ families, but we also provide mentorship, community, and business education for birth workers. So that includes doulas, childbirth educators, midwives, anyone who's running their own business, to not only run a business, but in a way that is anti-capitalist, frankly, but in a way that really pushes back against this common narrative. Like, especially like if you on like LLC Twitter or like LLC Instagram, and they're like, Oh, well, yeah, I feel like I see a lot of Airbnb type scams. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, so get the LLC and then buy the house and then make it an Airbnb and then put the LLC in your child's name. And then I'm like, I don't know if y'all should be listening to these people. They sound like they scamming, which is fine. Like, I'm always for scamming the system, but don't get the babies involved now. The poor baby. But there's a lot of advice out there that's a little shaky as far as like business advice and things to do, and like I get cutting corners and bootstrapping it, but like you can still do that with integrity. Like there's still ways to do that without cheating regular people.
Right. The key like, integrity. Absolutely.
Yeah. And these corporations, I don't care about them, but like don't cheat regular people. Yeah. And so that's a lot of what I'm talking about with the business side of it, but then also incorporating birth justice. And so as far as action items, everything comes back to community. And Kuluntu actually means community in Xhosa, which is spoken in South Africa. And so like community is really, to me, the opposite of capitalism. Mm-hmm. So the things that regular people can do are really just, how can you be a good community member to the people who are already in your community? How can you strengthen your relationships? How can you ask for help? How can you receive help? Because part of being in a community, you can't be the one who does for everybody and then doesn't do for you. You have to allow people to pour into you, sorry. Question your relationship with receiving. So many of us, especially Black women and Black femmes and Black people who were raised as girls and women, have a really hard time receiving because we were taught to be superwoman. We were taught to be mammy. Frankly, a lot of us at a very young age. Yeah. And so what is your relationship to receiving, to asking for help, to being vulnerable?
Oh, yes.
Like if everyone on earth did that work,
we would be leaps and bounds. Absolutely. So healing like that it would bring back that balance that's necessary for us to come together and succeed. Like that is
all about balance.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And you can't give without receiving.
Right. And you have to allow it in.
You can't do all the time without resting. What is your relationship to rest? What is your relationship to joy? Yeah. What is your relationship to pleasure? And not necessarily just sexual pleasure, but when was the last time you did something that you enjoyed for no other reason than you enjoyed it?
Absolutely.
I don't care if you got 12 kids. I don't care. You can take 10 minutes to do something you enjoy that maybe doesn't have to do with your phone.
Right. Or scrolling and understand that you deserve it. Right.
Right.
All of those good things.
Yeah, you can scroll, but maybe go step outside and take your shoes off, step on the grass. Yeah, step on the dirt, hug a tree, go for a walk, stretch.
Indeed.
Like pouring, I really think if we focus on pouring into ourselves and then we give from the excess, that's what I'm giving myself this medicine too. Yeah. We pour into ourselves and then we give from the excess. And so we get our needs met first. And then, as we're getting our needs met, maybe we can take a little pinch of joy. Maybe you can get the candy bar, or maybe you can, dance to your song, or you can, do something silly or take a bath. But, every day doesn't have to be hustle, grind, struggle. Yeah. Every day doesn't also have to be heal. Like some days you can just be, and some days you can just exist and you can just enjoy, and we have to have those things to keep in balance.
Yes. Now, so you have definitely left us with some things to ponder, because that is, absolutely so important. And just continuing that conversation of those are real action items that don't cost money, that you can implement into your life right now. Turn on some music, dance in front of the mirror, go outside, whatever it is that's going to give you a moment of joy, because you're absolutely right. We get into this rat race. Everything is hustle. And there's, we don't make room for anything else. Don't even think that, we're deserving of, like, you stop for a moment. It's like, oh, I'm being lazy. Like, I need to keep pushing. So everything that you just spoke of is just so important. From a community standpoint, like we all need to take that into consideration and bring those of things into our lives so that we can have some semblance of balance.
Yeah. And I will say real quick, as a parent, that's even more important, because not only do you need to pour into yourself first to be able to be your best self as a parent, but also your kids can see,
And
your daughters can see. They are learning, don't take care of myself.
Just keep going.
Just
and
keep going.
they can feel our stress. Our whole interaction is very different when you're coming from a place of like everything is so it's like get this it's a whole different energy when you can breathe.
Yes.
You can look at a situation a little different, and your tone changes, your energy changes, your vibration changes, and they deserve better, right? Like they deserve that love, and that
they deserve your best self.
We do.
And so do you. We all deserve your best self. We all deserve our best selves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the motivation and the inspiration behind all of this.
Yes.
So just showing up and being our best selves.
And trying every day. I love his name is Mr. Chaz on Instagram. He's a Black man who does work with a lot of work with like parenting toddlers, early childhood education, and a lot of inner child work. But he says, don't be a perfectionist, be an improvementist, and just try to be a little bit better every day. And, you know, every day ain't gonna be perfect, but we can always apologize. We can always reframe. We can always take a step back and try again the next day. So it ain't about being perfect. It's about trying.
Yes, continuously. Well, I truly appreciate you. Time has flown.
I know.
Just this conversation, we can't have this dialogue enough. You know, we can't have, you know, too many platforms speaking about this. We can't have too many events. We can't have too many trainings. There's no excess of this. Like this is healing. This is necessary work. So I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation with you today and to continue the conversation, you know, to the audience. If there's any information or anything that, you know, spoke to you, or, you know, someone who could see value in this, please share. Just share, you know, share the information, share the contact. We're going to have the links and information as to how to get in touch with Kuluntu so that you can stay connected, so that you can find out more about this work, this activism, what reproductive justice is, and how we can contribute and add value, because it really does impact the collective and the whole. So thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. And I definitely look forward to seeing more from you and hearing more from you and having you back on, because there's always something to talk about.
Yes, for sure. I would love to hop back on, and I am so grateful for this space, and I can't wait to continue to be in community with you.
Absolutely. You are truly appreciated.
Thank you. So are you.
Peace and blessings, family.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.